Okay, guys, so let's have a look at your macronutrients. Your macronutrients will include your carbohydrates, your protein, and your fat. So let's have a little look in depth. Okay, so by the end of this, you should be able to describe the macronutrients and their functions, evaluate a good dietary source of each of your macronutrients, recognize the transport, storage, and metabolized forms of each macronutrient, and explain the glycemic index. So a balanced diet requires the consumption of food from our five nutrient groups. They will include carbs, carbohydrate, protein, fat, vitamins, and minerals. The macronutrients will always be the carbs, the protein, and fat. The micronutrients, we're looking at your vitamins and your minerals. So the functions of a carbohydrate. Why do we need to eat carbohydrate? So it's the main source of energy supply to give the body and organs functioning. So it's vitally important that we have enough carbohydrates in our body to support this. Carbohydrates can easily be converted into glucose, which is a type of sugar that is transported by the body and used for energy. It also helps to regulate blood sugar levels, give the feeling of fullness. So if you're looking for fat loss, for example, it will help you with losing fat. So what you've heard about cutting out carbohydrates to lose fat is utterly ridiculous. So hang in with me, and I'll explain later why I'm saying that. It also provides dietary fiber, helps protect against heart disease and also against some cancers, and also helps prevent constipation. So why I'm saying that carbohydrates are not your enemy is now we can split it into two different types of carbohydrate. We've got refined carbohydrates and we've got unrefined carbohydrates. If you have either in abundance in terms of refined carbohydrates are carbohydrates that have been refined of all of their goodness, the vitamins and minerals that turn them into a man-made product. Whereas your unrefined carbohydrates are closer to the natural produce as possible. So we need here, and I'm sure everybody's probably sick of hearing this, we need balance, whether we're having unrefined or refined carbohydrates within our proteins and fats within our diet. Unrefined are normally bad quality carbohydrates. So this is where people are saying carbohydrates are bad for you. And yes, in abundance, if you're eating too many refined carbohydrates, of course, your body will either burn it as energy or will store it as fat if you're eating excess. So let's have a little look in further. So let's now look at the structure of your carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are made of molecules or units of saccharides forming three basic carbohydrate types. So again, we've got simple carbohydrates, complex carbohydrates, and non-starch polysaccharides. Non-starch polysaccharides will always be fiber, which doesn't give us any energy, and it's solely to help us with digestion of our food and to help us to feel full. So let's look at simple sugars, very small molecules combined of one or two sugar units normally, and then complex is much larger molecules which consist of hundreds of sugar units. So let's now start thinking about simple carbohydrates. Simple carbohydrates we normally refer to as refined carbohydrates. So refined carbohydrates are carbohydrates that have been stripped of all the vitamins and minerals. They lack no dietary fiber. So are normally simpler, which is a fast released energy, which is normally the poor version of carbohydrates. But in some circumstances, we can utilize a simple refined carbohydrate as opposed to a complex carbohydrate. It takes longer for the sugar to break down in your body. So we give a slow release of energy throughout the day. Now, if eaten by itself, that would be true. But let's have a little look further on through the mini tutorial to find out a little bit more information. So simple sugars, monosaccharides and disaccharides, Remember, mono is 1, di is 2, so a monosaccharide is a single sugar unit, and we normally find it in fructose, which is fruit sugar. So in your fruit, we normally find fructose, and glucose, which is the main form in which carbohydrate circulates in our body as blood sugar. Normally found in table sugar, honey, soft drinks, and confectionery. Disaccharides are carbohydrates with 2 sugar units. So sucrose, again, table sugar, and lactose, which you'll find in milk. Milk, totally different. We can talk about that when we talk about dairy and why I think people should not be eating dairy. It's not I'm anti-cows or anti-dairy because I eat beef. It's the lactose, the lactase within the sugar that I'm opposed to. Now, I believe that we cannot break down correctly. So let's look, these are simple sugars. So whenever we talk about monosaccharide, we're looking at glucose, fructose, and galactose. So maltose is 2-glucose, sucrose is a fructose and a glucose, and lactose is a galactose and glucose. So when you're looking at your food diary or your food labels on your food and you see these words being mentioned, this is what it is in a molecular structure. So let's now look at complex carbohydrates, polysaccharides. They have 2 or more units of sugar linked together and often consist of hundreds of sugar units, mostly made up of glucose. Some fruit and vegetables, especially potatoes, root vegetables, and pulses contain a mixture of sugars and starches. Fiber, I've touched on before, it's an indigestible plant material. So your body gets no energy from, but it does provide us with lots of fiber, which helps in digestion. Normally found on the skin of fruit. So you eat an apple, you eat the apple skin. However, do you eat banana skin? So sources include root vegetables, nuts, seeds, oats, fruits, cereals, and wholemeal bread. Fiber, non-starch polysaccharide. So again, this is your monos and your disaccharides, your simple sugars. The healthier option would be in fruit because it contains vitamins and minerals. It helps to metabolize the carbohydrate as energy and contains lots of fiber if you're eating the fruit skin. The unhealthy option is what we're saying is bad. We should avoid. So it's like your cakes, your biscuits, white refined sugar is added to them. There are no vitamins or minerals to utilize as energy. They lack fiber. They're an anti-nutrient. So that means they'll draw nutrients out of your stored metabolized food. So where possible, try to avoid the simple unrefined or refined unhealthy option of your simple sugar. Unrefined, these are sources. So sources are wholemeal bread, whole grain rice, frozen veg, and veggies, yams, quinoa. They contain lots of fructose and glucose in various amounts. They contain antioxidants and phytochemicals. So it's vitally important that if you're giving your clients or if you're in your own training or doing high impact, high energy, high intense exercise, that you have these antioxidants in your body to replace all that oxidative stress that's happening within your structures within your body. Remember, every time you breathe, your body is breathing in gases and stuff that will eventually age and kill you. So antioxidants will help to combat the aging process and to help the structures within your body cope with oxidative stress. They contain high levels of dietary fiber, contain vitamins and minerals, and trace amino acids. So remember, if you think about from your level 2 qualification that a protein is to grow and repair, all fruit and all vegetables are plants, so they have to grow, and through growing it also go through a repair stage. So there are trace proteins in all plants. They're a good source of energy. They slower sustained insulin response. So they provide a slower release of energy into your body. refined carbohydrates. So you're going to find it in white bread, white pasta, rice, white rice. So we all have white rice, white pasta. Guys, it's vitally important that we need to avoid this where possible because it's packed full of sugar. Processed food, rice cakes, pastries, all of this. Yeah, where possible, choose the whole grain option. Now, I'm saying where possible because our budget will decide what food we buy. So if I'm on a lower income, I'm going to choose food that I can afford. And if you're looking at unrefined foods, whole grain pasta, whole grain rice, normally it's about 20-30% more expensive than the cheaper refined version. The properties for your refined carbohydrates, they contain processed low quality fat. They are a source of energy. They're deficient in dietary fiber, and they're stripped largely from your vitamins and minerals, and they produce a faster insulin response. Okay, so how is all that going to work? So carbohydrate is stored as glycogen in the muscle and the liver, along with about 3 times its weight in water. There are about 3 times more glycogen stored in the muscle than there is in the liver, basically because you have more surface area of muscle than what you do of liver. Small amounts of glucose are present in the blood and brain to allow for normal functioning, and the liver glycogen stores are used to top up glycogen in these areas. So basically, the glycogen for your brain is coming directly from your liver. Your muscles will use stored glycogen in the muscle. Your body can only store limited sources of glycogen at any one time, and regular training rapidly depletes the reserves. So we need to keep topping up our levels of carbohydrate throughout the day. A diet too high in carbohydrate can upset the delicate balance of your body's blood sugar levels, resulting in fluctuations in mood, energy, feelings of irritability, and tiredness. So we all have felt hungry. How can you, or how did you feel in times where you felt hungry? You felt a little bit restless, you felt a little bit irritable, you felt tired, you felt slow, lethargic. Before then you re-top up on your glycogen levels. In the past, it was thought that simple carbohydrates cause a rise in blood sugar levels and therefore a rise in insulin levels, followed by a massive rebound. So we used to call it a glycemic bonk. So you'd peak, peak, peak on simple carbohydrates and boom, would drop. However, that's if you're eating a carbohydrate in isolation. However, we don't eat our carbs in isolation. On our plate of food, we don't eat all the carbs, then eat all the protein, then eat all the vegetables, because that would be a bit silly, because we normally combine all of our food. However, where we're saying is if you're getting this fast insulin response, whatever you add to that, so if I add protein to the carbohydrate or I add fat to the carbohydrate, it will slow the release down. So it will give an even slower response, even though the carbohydrate that you're eating will give a fast insulin response. The food that you eat with it will help to regulate that response. So however fast or however slow the glucose is released into your body, we put it on a scale. We call that scale the glycemic index. The glycemic index indicates the rise in blood sugar levels based on ingesting a particular carbohydrate by comparison that of pure glucose. So if we're looking at pure glucose, we would give it a GI of maximum 100. And then we rate our food whether it's low GI, moderate GI, or high GI. Depending on release, it will go into your bloodstream if it's eaten by itself. So most foods will have an index of between 20 and 100. The GI values refer to single foods when they're eaten on their own. And this is important, that it's only if you eat that carbohydrate by itself, it will give that fast, moderate, or slow response. Whatever you add to it will either speed it up or slow it down. So foods with a high GI are not unnecessarily unhealthy foods. For example, you look at crisps, they have a medium GI, but a baked potato has a high GI. Why do you think that is? So a baked potato is a big complex carbohydrate. However, when I put it in the oven and I cook it, it's going to break down the molecular structure. So whenever I eat it, and then it's digested a lot quicker because that molecular structure has already been broken down, so it makes it easier for my body to absorb. If I add butter to the baked potato, it will slow that response down because the fat will slow the release of glycogen into my body. Foods with a lower GI are not necessarily healthy foods. So for example, here it's giving you chocolate and ice cream. So we cannot eat chocolate and ice cream and expect it as a low GI food because it's packed in fat. So the high saturated fat isn't good, and therefore we cannot live on chocolate and ice cream. Nice idea, but we cannot. Okay, so how does that then link into your client's training program? So if you want to now go away with your client and say, listen, I'm going to give you a pre-workout meal, would we give our clients a low GI, a moderate GI, or a high GI meal before workout? So if you're sitting at home saying, I'm going to give my client a fast released energy source prior to workout, you might want to rethink what you're going to give your client. Because remember, your session will probably last for about 1 hour, maybe 45 minutes to 1 hour. So we want slow release energy the whole way through the workout and not just fast energy at the beginning of the workout. So if we're looking to give a pre-workout snack, we're looking more to low to moderate glycemic index food to get to refer to our client. Now, post exercise, after the exercise, your client's been burning all that glycogen, so they're depleting all their glycogen resources. So post workout, I would recommend that my client gets a fast released energy source within 15 minutes of stopping exercise. So I refer to my client to get them fast released energy within the first 15 minutes of stopping exercise. That will help to replace lost glycogen in the liver and in the muscle. Because remember, we're trying to balance. I don't want to eat protein directly after the workout because the protein I want the protein to go to my client's muscle to grow and repair the muscle. I don't want the protein to go and replenish the lost muscle and liver glycogen to fuel my brain. So first 15 minutes, recommend to your clients a fast released carbohydrate source. Then within 1 hour to 2 hours, a normal glycemic index or moderate glycemic index and high protein source to replace the rest of the muscle glycogen and the liver glycogen, and then to eat the protein so the protein goes to grow and repair the muscle. So you should be able now to look and describe the macronutrients in terms of carbohydrates, evaluate a good dietary source of the macronutrient, the carbohydrate, recognize transport, storage, and the metabolized form of the carbohydrate, and explain the glycemic index and how we can use it to fuel our client post-workout and pre-workout and just for general daily life. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you've got any questions, drop me a little message and I will respond to you, especially if it's about your client and how we link this into our training programs. So thank you very much for stopping by and watching this mini tutorial.